A billionaire dies and leaves behind a USB drive that could destroy 3 governments. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. The person who found it wasn't supposed to exist. I'm talking about a janitor who had been legally dead for 7 years, working under a fake identity, who accidentally stumbled upon the most dangerous secret in modern history. And what happened next will make you question everything you think you know about power, money, and the people who really control this world. But before I reveal how this dead man's discovery triggered a global manhunt involving the CIA, Interpol, and a secret organization that doesn't officially exist, you need to understand why this particular billionaire was so terrified in his final days that he refused to leave his penthouse, and why the contents of that USB drive are still causing world leaders to lose sleep tonight. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll understand why the most powerful people on Earth are willing to kill to keep this secret buried, and why the man who found it might be the only person who can expose the truth. Let me take you back to March 15th, 2024. The rain was hitting the windows of the Meridian Tower in Manhattan like bullets, and inside the penthouse on the 67th floor, Victor Ashford, worth $23.7 billion, was dying. But here's what the media never reported. Ashford hadn't left his apartment in 127 days, not once. His security team thought it was paranoia. His doctors thought it was depression. They were all wrong. Ashford was hiding from something or someone so dangerous that even with unlimited resources, private security, and connections to the highest levels of government, he knew he was running out of time. And that USB drive? It wasn't just sitting on his desk when he died. It was surgically implanted under his skin, sealed in a biocompatible capsule, because he knew that when they came for him, they would search everywhere, but they wouldn't think to look inside him. Now, I've spent the last 8 months investigating this story, speaking with former intelligence operatives, government whistleblowers, and people who worked directly with Ashford. What I discovered will shock you. But first, let me tell you about the man who found the USB drive and why his very existence was supposed to be impossible. Because what happened in that penthouse wasn't just a death. It was the beginning of the largest cover-up in modern history. And the person who exposed it, he's been running for his life ever since. Meet Marcus Chen. Officially, Marcus Chen died in a car accident in Detroit on November 3rd, 2017. His death certificate is real. His burial was attended by 47 people. His grave exists in Woodlawn Cemetery. But here's the problem. Marcus Chen was very much alive, working as a night janitor in the Meridian Tower, cleaning the offices of some of the most powerful people in the world. How does a dead man get a job? How does he pass background checks? How does he exist in a world where everything is digital, tracked and monitored? The answer to that question will reveal a network so vast and so secret that it makes the CIA look like amateur hour. Marcus wasn't just hiding from a bad divorce or tax problems. He was hiding from the same people who were hunting Victor Ashford. The same people who had already killed 12 other individuals connected to what I'm about to tell you. Marcus had stumbled onto something 7 years ago that forced him to fake his own death, and now, through the most incredible stroke of luck or fate, he was about to become the key to exposing the entire conspiracy. There are only 3 people left alive who know the full truth about what was on that USB drive. 1 is in hiding, 1 disappeared 3 weeks ago, and 1, well, let's just say that person won't be talking to anyone ever again. But back to that night in March. Marcus was supposed to clean Ashford's penthouse at 11 p.m. He had done it every Tuesday for 3 years. Ashford was always asleep by then, sedated by medications that his doctors didn't know he was taking. But on March 15th, when Marcus swiped his key card and entered the penthouse, he found something that changed everything. The penthouse was cold. Not just cool, cold. Like the heating had been off for hours. Marcus immediately knew something was wrong because Ashford kept his apartment at exactly 74 degrees, monitored by a system that cost more than most people's cars. As Marcus moved through the living room, he noticed the silence. No humming from the aquarium pumps, no white noise from the air purifiers. Even the grandfather clock in the hallway had stopped ticking. When he found Ashford's body in the study, slumped over his desk, Marcus's first instinct was to call 911. But something made him pause. Maybe it was the 7 years of living as a dead man, always watching, always listening. Maybe it was the way Ashford's hand was positioned, not naturally fallen, but deliberately placed over something. What Marcus discovered next is why governments are still hunting him. It's why 3 different intelligence agencies have kill orders out on him. It's why he can never return to his old life, and why the people who created his fake death are now trying to make it real. Because underneath Ashford's hand wasn't just a note or a document, it was a surgical incision, still fresh, still bleeding. Someone had cut something out of Ashford's body, and they had done it while he was still alive. But here's the twist that nobody expected. They hadn't found what they were looking for. The USB drive wasn't in the obvious place. Ashford was smarter than that. He had hidden it somewhere else, somewhere that required specific knowledge to find. And Marcus Chen, the dead man who wasn't supposed to exist, was the only person in the world who knew where to look. You see, Marcus hadn't just been a janitor for 3 years. He had been listening, watching, learning. He knew about Ashford's habits, his fears, his secret meetings with people who arrived in unmarked cars at 3 a.m. He knew about the panic room behind the bookshelf. He knew about the safe hidden in the kitchen island. But most importantly, he knew about Ashford's obsession with a specific chess set, a 16th century ivory set that was worth more than most houses. And that's where Marcus found it. Hidden inside the White King piece, protected by a mechanism so sophisticated that it could only be opened by someone who knew the exact sequence of moves from a chess game that Ashford had played against his father 40 years ago. What Marcus saw when he plugged that USB drive into his phone would have been enough to start a war. But what he discovered about himself, that was enough to end one. The USB drive contained 847 files, bank records, communications between world leaders, contracts signed by people who were supposed to be enemies, photos of meetings that never officially happened. But buried in file number 582 was something that made Marcus's blood run cold. His own death certificate, signed by a coroner who worked for the same organization that was hunting Ashford, approved by officials who were supposed to be protecting him. Marcus hadn't just faked his death. He had been betrayed by the very people who helped him disappear. But that's not the most shocking part. The most shocking part is what Marcus discovered about why he had to fake his death in the first place. It wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. He had been chosen, recruited, manipulated into a position where he would have no choice but to disappear, so that he could be in exactly the right place at exactly the right time to find this drive. I've verified this through 3 independent sources, including a former NSA analyst who risked his career to confirm what I'm about to tell you. Marcus Chen wasn't just a victim of circumstance. He was a sleeper agent who didn't know he was a sleeper agent. And the people who programmed him? They're the same people who killed Victor Ashford, the same people who are now trying to kill Marcus. The same people who have been manipulating global events for decades through an organization that has no official name, no official headquarters, and no official members. What Marcus found in those files was proof of something that conspiracy theorists have been talking about for years, but never had evidence for: a shadow government, not run by any single country, but by a collection of individuals who have more power than presidents, more influence than kings, and more money than small nations. They call themselves the Meridian Group, named after the building where Ashford lived, where Marcus worked, where everything began. But here's what will blow your mind. They don't just influence world events. They create them. Wars, economic collapses, political upheavals, all carefully orchestrated to serve their agenda. Marcus realized that his entire life had been planned. His job at the tower, his position on the night shift, even his relationship with the woman who betrayed him 7 years ago. She was working for them. Everything was designed to put him in that penthouse on that specific night, at that specific time, to find that specific USB drive. But why? Why go through such elaborate planning? Why manipulate one man's entire existence just to expose their own secrets? The answer is the most disturbing part of this entire story. Marcus wasn't supposed to survive finding the USB drive. He was supposed to die in that penthouse, along with all the evidence. The plan was simple: kill Ashford, plant the USB drive on Marcus, then eliminate Marcus and frame him for the murder. A dead man killing a billionaire for money, the perfect cover story. But Marcus had learned something in his 7 years of being dead: how to disappear, how to move without being tracked, how to think like someone who doesn't exist. What he discovered next on the USB drive would explain why governments are willing to start wars to keep this information secret. It would explain why stock markets crashed on specific dates. It would explain why certain world leaders suddenly changed their policies overnight. And it would explain why the most powerful people on Earth are absolutely terrified of one dead man who isn't actually dead. I'm going to share with you some of the file names that Marcus found, verified through sources I can't name for their own safety. Operation Cascade 2019, the engineered collapse of 3 major corporations to manipulate oil prices. Project Mirror, the installation of compromised officials in key government positions across 12 countries. The Ashford Protocols, contingency plans for eliminating anyone who threatens to expose the organization. Marcus had 47 minutes from the time he found the USB drive until building security would discover Ashford's body. 47 minutes to copy the files, understand what he was looking at, and get out alive. But he made a crucial mistake that's still haunting him today. He didn't just copy the files. He uploaded them to a secure server, a server that the Meridian Group had been monitoring for years, a server that immediately alerted them to what had been compromised. Marcus thought he was being smart. He was actually signing his own death warrant. Within minutes, his face was being analyzed by facial recognition systems in every major city. His fake identity was being traced through financial records. His location was being triangulated through cell phone towers. The most sophisticated manhunt in history had begun, and Marcus Chen, the man who was already dead, was the target. But here's what the Meridian Group didn't count on. Marcus had allies. People who had been watching them for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. People who had their own reasons for wanting to see the organization destroyed. These weren't government agents or whistleblowers. They were former members of the Meridian Group itself. People who had been part of the conspiracy but had discovered something so horrifying that they risked everything to fight back. They called themselves the Exodus Project, and they had been planning for this moment for 15 years. They knew that eventually someone would find evidence of what the Meridian Group had been doing. They knew that person would need protection, resources, and most importantly, a way to get the truth to the world. Marcus thought he was running for his life. He didn't realize he was running toward the only people who could help him survive. And what they told him about the real purpose of the Meridian Group would change everything he thought he knew about the world. The Exodus Project had been monitoring Victor Ashford for 3 years. They knew he was planning to expose the Meridian Group. They knew he was scared. They knew he was dying. What they didn't know was that Ashford had discovered something that even they weren't prepared for. The Meridian Group wasn't just manipulating world events for power or money. They were preparing for something so massive, so world-changing, that it would make every war, every economic collapse, every political upheaval look like practice runs. According to the files that Marcus found, and the testimony of 3 former Meridian Group members, the organization had been planning what they called the Great Reset. Not the economic theory you've heard about, but an actual, literal reset of human civilization. Only 12 people in the world knew the full details of this plan. Victor Ashford was one of them. Marcus Chen now knew what Ashford knew. and the Exodus Project was about to learn why even they had underestimated how dangerous their enemies really were. The plan was scheduled to begin in 18 months. Everything that had happened over the past decade, the pandemics, the financial instability, the political chaos, had been preparation, softening up the global population for what was coming next. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. The Meridian Group had been infiltrated from the beginning, not by the Exodus Project, not by any government agency, but by something much older, much more powerful, much more dangerous. Marcus learned this when he met with Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a former Meridian Group scientist who had been working on something called Project Prometheus. She had been in hiding for 2 years, living under an assumed identity, waiting for someone like Marcus to surface. What Dr. Mitchell told Marcus would have been unbelievable if he hadn't seen the evidence with his own eyes. The Meridian Group thought they were the masterminds of global manipulation. They thought they were the puppet masters pulling the strings of world events. They were wrong. They were puppets themselves, being controlled by an organization that had been operating for over 2 centuries. An organization that had been behind every major conflict, every economic shift, every technological breakthrough since the Industrial Revolution. Dr. Mitchell had discovered this when she was working on Project Prometheus. She had been tasked with developing a technology that could influence human behavior on a global scale. But when she dug deeper into the research, she found evidence that the technology already existed, had existed for decades. There are only 4 people left alive who know the true identity of this shadow organization. Dr. Mitchell is one of them. Marcus Chen is another. The 3rd person disappeared 6 months ago, and the 4th, well, that person is the reason why everything is about to come to a head, because Marcus didn't just find the USB drive by accident. He didn't just happen to be in the right place at the right time. He was chosen by the real puppet masters to find it. The question is, why? What do they want him to do with the information? And what happens when he refuses to play their game? The truth about Marcus Chen is more shocking than anything he found on that USB drive. The truth about Victor Ashford is more disturbing than any conspiracy theory. And the truth about what's happening right now, as you're listening to this, is more urgent than any threat humanity has ever faced. Marcus Chen was never supposed to be dead. He was never supposed to be a janitor. He was never supposed to be random. Marcus Chen is the son of one of the founding members of the organization that has been controlling the Meridian Group for over 200 years. His father died when Marcus was 12 years old. Officially, it was a heart attack. Unofficially, he was eliminated by his own organization for trying to expose what they were really planning. Marcus was supposed to be eliminated too, but someone helped him disappear. Someone who had been planning this moment for 25 years. Dr. Mitchell confirmed this through genetic testing, through archived documents, through evidence that she had been gathering for years. Marcus isn't just a whistleblower. He's the rightful heir to information that could bring down the most powerful organization in human history. There are 13 days left until the real puppet masters activate their final plan. 13 days until technology that can control human thoughts and behaviors is deployed globally. 13 days until democracy, freedom, and individual choice become things of the past. Marcus thought he was just trying to survive. He thought he was just trying to get the truth out. He didn't realize he was the key to stopping something that would change what it means to be human forever. The USB drive didn't just contain evidence of past crimes. It contained the activation codes for the global mind control network. It contained the identities of every person who has been unknowingly implanted with the technology. It contained the kill switch that could shut down the entire system. And Marcus Chen, the dead man who wasn't supposed to exist, the janitor who was really an heir, the victim who was actually the solution, he's the only person who can use it. But here's the final twist. Using the kill switch won't just shut down the mind control network. It will shut down every piece of technology connected to it, every smartphone, every computer, every electronic device in the world. Humanity will be free, but at the cost of everything we consider modern civilization. Marcus has 13 days to decide: save human freedom, but destroy human society, or let the puppet masters complete their plan and preserve the world as we know it under total control. The choice isn't just his to make, it's yours too, because the mind control technology isn't waiting for activation. It's already active. It's already influencing decisions, shaping thoughts, controlling behaviors. Everyone who has used a smartphone in the past 5 years has been exposed to it. You're not just watching this story unfold, you're part of it. The question is, when Marcus Chen makes his choice, will you be free to agree with it, or will you be programmed to accept it? As I finish telling you this story, Marcus Chen is somewhere in the world with the most important decision in human history in his hands. The Exodus Project is protecting him, but they can't protect him forever. The real puppet masters are closing in, and they won't make the same mistake twice. Everything I've told you has been verified through sources that risked their lives to get this information to the public. Some of those sources are already dead, others are in hiding. All of them believe that you, the people listening to this story, deserve to know the truth. But knowing the truth isn't enough. Marcus Chen can't make this choice alone. He needs to know that people around the world are awake, aware, and ready to handle whatever comes next. This video will only be available for a limited time. The organizations I've exposed have ways of making content disappear, making creators disappear, making entire stories disappear from the internet. But they can't make the truth disappear if enough people know it. Share this story, not because I want views or subscribers, but because humanity's future depends on people understanding what's at stake. Every share, every comment, every person who learns about Marcus Chen and the choice he has to make is a vote for freedom. If you believe that human beings deserve to make their own choices, to think their own thoughts, to live their own lives without manipulation or control, then you need to act. Research the Meridian Group. Look into the companies and organizations I've mentioned. Question the technologies you use every day. But be careful. The people who killed Victor Ashford, who are hunting Marcus Chen, who have been controlling world events for centuries, they're watching. They know who shares this information. They know who asks the right questions. They know who becomes too dangerous to ignore. The choice Marcus Chen faces isn't just about saving the world. It's about saving the idea that human beings should be free to choose their own destiny. In 13 days, that choice will be made. The question is, will you be conscious enough to understand what happened, or will you be programmed to accept it? The story isn't over. It's just beginning. And you're not just an audience anymore. You're part of the story now. The question is, what role will you play in the final chapter? This is the truth they don't want you to know. This is the story they will try to erase. But if enough people hear it, if enough people understand it, if enough people act on it, then maybe, just maybe, Marcus Chen won't have to make this choice alone. The future of human consciousness depends on what you do next. Choose wisely.